Okay, so we've got a ton of info here on Patrice Motsepe. Successful businessman, philanthropist, football enthusiast. But then there's this lawsuit and these financial irregularities at CF. Seems like a lot to unpack, huh?
It is, yeah. It's really fascinating, how these recent controversies are impacting the legacy of someone who, up until pretty recently, really just seemed to be on this constant upward trajectory.
So let's dive into that. Who is Patrice Motsepe?
Yeah.
We need to understand his journey before we can even really grasp how these challenges are affecting him.
Like, absolutely. So rewind back to 1962. Motsepe's story, it all starts in Soweto Township.
Mhm.
Not exactly the typical birthplace of a billionaire.
Right.
His father was a tribal chief, actually, and owned a small shop where Patrice learned some early business lessons.
I was surprised to learn that he went to a private Catholic school during apartheid. That couldn't have been very common.
Yeah, it seems like education was a real priority for the Motsepe family.
Mm.
He went on to earn a law degree from the University of Swaziland. And then, get this, the then whites-only University of the Witwatersrand. He had to get special permission to study there.
Wow. So you're telling me he was breaking barriers even before he entered the business world?
Exactly. And that drive led him to become the first black partner at Bowman Gilfillan, a very prestigious South African law firm, in 1994.
That timing seems incredibly significant. Apartheid had just ended.
Yeah, it was perfect timing, really. The dismantling of apartheid opened up all these doors for black entrepreneurs, and Motsepe was more than ready. He founded Future Mining that same year, leveraging the opportunities created by that changing political landscape. Later, in 1997, he established African Rainbow Minerals, South Africa's first black-owned mining company.
So he was in a unique position to really benefit from the Black Economic Empowerment Program?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. That program was designed to address the inequalities created by apartheid, and create these opportunities for black South Africans like Motsepe. His success is definitely a testament to his, business acumen and his drive. But it's also really important to understand how the program itself contributed to his rise.
Mm-hmm. And his business ventures, they didn't stop with just one mining company.
Not at all. African Rainbow Minerals expanded into cobalt, nickel, iron ore, copper, coal. It's not like he was just randomly picking minerals.
Hmm.
You know, cobalt and nickel, for example. Those are crucial for electric vehicles.
Yeah.
So this diversification strategy, it really shows his foresight and how he was anticipating future trends.
Yeah, all of that led to him becoming the first black South African billionaire and the third richest person in the whole country.
Hmm.
But he didn't hoard that wealth, did he?
No, he's actually very well known for his philanthropy. He and his wife, Dr. Patrice Tlhopane Motsepe, established the Motsepe Foundation. They focus on uplifting communities through these education and healthcare initiatives.
And and he didn't stop there. He actually became the first African to join the Giving Pledge, committing to donate at least half of his wealth to charity, like Warren Buffett and Bill Gates. That's incredible.
It's a substantial commitment to giving back.
Yeah.
It aligns with the South African philosophy of Ubuntu,
Mm.
which really emphasizes that interconnectedness and responsibility to the community.
It's interesting, his family ties really seem to reflect that interconnectedness as well. His sister, Sheba Motsepe, is married to South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, while another sister, Bridget Redebe, is married to a high-ranking ANC official. It just highlights that complex relationship between business and politics in South Africa, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It definitely raises some interesting questions about the dynamics of power and influence there.
Mhm.
Speaking of influence, maybe we can move to another sphere where Motsepe has made his mark: football.
Right. He's the president of Mamelodi Sundowns Football Club, and they won the CAF Champions League in 2016. That was a huge victory for South African football. What was it like to see a team like Sundowns rise to such a prestigious level?
Oh, it was truly inspiring. It was a testament to Motsepe's leadership and, his investment in the team.
Hmm.
And that victory seemed to propel him further into the world of African football. In 2021, he was elected president of CAF, the Confederation of African Football.
That was surprising to a lot of people. He wasn't exactly a known figure in African football administration.
Exactly. His election, it raised eyebrows. Some people questioned if he even had the experience to lead such a complex organization. And now, well, those questions are even more relevant in light of recent events.
Which brings us to those controversies we mentioned at the very start. A recent audit of CAF uncovered some pretty significant financial losses under Motsepe's leadership.
Yeah, and then there's a lawsuit filed against him in Tanzania. They're accusing him of breaching a non-compete contract related to some mining investments. It seems like his foray into football administration hasn't been quite as smooth as his business ventures.
So we've gone from this inspiring story of success and philanthropy to some serious accusations. It's quite a turn of events.
It is, and these controversies are really forcing us to kind of reevaluate Motsepe's legacy, which is what we'll delve into deeper in the next part of our deep dive.
So let's dive into those controversies. First, those financial losses at CICAF. The audit revealed a loss of $16 million, and a lot of it was attributed to what they called technical costs. What does that even mean? Were they upgrading their computer systems or something?
Not quite. The term technical costs, it's a bit vague, and I think that's part of the problem. The audit committee found a lot of expenses that just weren't very clearly accounted for. There were these provisions for debt balances that just seemed, well, off, and even some debtor balances that were completely unaccounted for.
So it wasn't just a few misplaced receipts. This sounds like there was some serious mismanagement of funds.
Yeah, it definitely raises some red flags. And it gets even more complicated when you consider the allegations that the CCAF Secretary General, Dron Mosengo Omba, actually interfered with the audit process.
Interfered how? Was he trying to hide something?
Well, the audit committee, they accused him of trying to influence their report and even hiring some external firm to conduct a separate audit without their approval.
That does seem a little suspicious. What does this audit really reveal about CCAF's financial practices under Motsepe's leadership? And how does this reflect on his leadership style?
It's a complex situation.
Mhm.
Motsepe has kind of tried to distance himself from those day-to-day operations of CCAF and focused more on that big picture and diplomatic relations. He's basically left the management to Mosengo Omba.
So he's been more of a figurehead while someone else runs the show?
Essentially, yeah. But the issue is, when things go wrong, the president, ultimately takes the heat. This audit happened under his watch, and it's going to be tough for him to completely deflect responsibility.
Especially with his reelection campaign coming up. This has to be a major blow to his credibility.
Absolutely. These controversies, they're casting a shadow over his achievements. He needs to show that he's taking these issues seriously, and taking steps to address them if he wants to regain the trust of the African football community.
Now let's shift gears to that lawsuit in Tanzania. Remind us what that's about.
Right. So a Tanzanian mining firm, it's called Kula Graphite Partners, is suing Motsepe and his companies. They're claiming that Motsepe's companies invested in this rival Australian mining project, and it directly competed with their graphite site in Tanzania, breaching a non-compete agreement that they had.
So Motsepe is being accused of essentially going behind their backs and undermining their business.
That's their argument, yeah. And they're seeking a substantial amount in damages, like $195 million.
Wow, that's a huge sum of money. How is Motsepe responding to these allegations? Is he admitting any fault?
No, he's vehemently denying any wrongdoing. He's claiming that his companies, yeah, they did consider investing in Pula's project, but they ultimately decided against it, and they communicated that decision to Pula. He insists that there was no breach of contract and that the lawsuit is just baseless.
But Pula is saying that there was this 2-year non-compete agreement in place and that Motsepe's companies invested in the Australian project during that time frame. It sounds like a classic he said, she said situation.
It does. Ultimately, it'll come down to evidence and legal arguments. But one thing's for sure, this lawsuit is a major distraction for Motsepe, and it could significantly impact his reputation, even if he is found not guilty.
So we have two very different controversies, each with the potential to really tarnish his reputation. It seems like Motsepe is kind of caught between a rock and a hard place.
He certainly is. He's facing these serious accusations from both the football world and the business world. It's fascinating to observe how he's choosing to navigate these challenges.
What's his strategy? Is he laying low and hoping things blow over?
No, not at all. He's adopted this kind of two-pronged approach. So on the CAF front, he's acknowledged the financial irregularities and pledged to implement stricter financial controls, and improve transparency. He's trying to reassure the African football community that he's taking the situation seriously.
Okay, and what about the lawsuit? Is he taking a similar approach?
No, he's gone on the offensive. He's publicly denounced the lawsuit as absolute rubbish and absolute nonsense. He's accusing Pula Graphite Partners of basically trying to extort money from him, and he's vowed to fight this lawsuit vigorously and clear his name.
So it's defense on one front and offense on the other. It's interesting that he's chosen to fight these battles so publicly. What do you think about that strategy?
It's a risky strategy, but it also shows, I think, how much he values his reputation and his legacy. He's not backing down without a fight.
One article I read described him as relentlessly optimistic. Do you see that optimism kind of reflected in how he's handling these recent challenges?
I think it is a core part of his personality, you
Yeah.
know? He's always been someone who sees opportunities where others just see obstacles. But this situation, this is different. He's not just facing business challenges. His integrity and his leadership are being questioned now.
So this isn't just about money or business deals, it's about his character.
Exactly. This whole saga has become like a real test of character for Motsepe. His leadership's being scrutinized like never before, and his actions over the next few months, they're going to determine how he's ultimately remembered.
It's amazing how quickly things can change. We started this deep dive celebrating his achievements, and now we're analyzing his ability to handle major setbacks. It's a reminder that success is often fleeting, and even the most accomplished individuals, they can stumble.
Yeah, it is. And it's how they respond to those stumbles that really defines them. And that's what we'll explore further in the next part of our deep dives. We'll look at the potential long-term consequences of these controversies and what they might mean for Motsepe's future.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into Patrice Motsepe, from his meteoric rise to billionaire status to his philanthropic efforts, and now these controversies surrounding CF and that lawsuit in Tanzania. It's been quite a journey.
It really has. And, as we move into this final part of our deep dive, I think it's crucial for us to step back and consider what this all means for Motsepe's legacy. How will he be remembered?
Yeah, that's a big question. And I think it goes beyond just Motsepe himself, his story. It seems to touch upon some larger kind of societal themes, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Motsepe's journey, I think it reflects those broader shifts that are happening across the African continent, the rise of this new generation of business leaders, that complex relationship between wealth and responsibility, and this ongoing struggle to really address the legacy of inequality.
His pledge to donate half of his wealth, it seems to speak to that sense of responsibility. It's a pretty powerful statement.
It is. It aligns with the South African philosophy of Ubuntu, which emphasizes that interconnectedness and the well-being of the community.
Mm.
The question is, will these values guide him as he navigates these current challenges?
His decision to enter the world of African football administration is an interesting one. What are your thoughts on that? Why do you think he chose to take on that role?
There's been a lot of speculation about his motivations. Some people, they view it as a genuine desire to contribute to the development of African football. Others are, well, they're more cynical. They suggest that it's a power play or a way to boost his political capital.
Right. It's hard to know what's truly driving him. But one thing is for sure, his leadership is being put to the test.
Yeah. And that hands-off approach of his, which maybe worked in the business world, it's not translating well to this highly scrutinized and often political world of football administration. He's going to need to adapt and demonstrate a different kind of leadership if he wants to move past these controversies.
It seems like he's at a crossroads. He can either double down on his current approach, risking further damage to his reputation, or embrace a more transparent and collaborative leadership style, which could help him regain some of that lost trust.
Yeah, and this kind of raises an important question for you. What kind of leader do you think Patrice Motsepe will ultimately be remembered as? Will he be that visionary entrepreneur who brought African football to new heights? Or will he be seen as, well, a symbol of unfulfilled promises and missed opportunities? Only time will tell.
It's a story worth following, that's for sure. Patrice Motsepe's journey, it's far from over. It'll be fascinating to see how he navigates these turbulent waters. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Patrice Motsepe. We encourage you to kind of delve deeper into this story and form your own opinions about him and the future of African football.